Step 4. The Hero's Journey to Transformation. If you're ready, let me tell you the rest of my story to see if it can help you again. Okay, so, as I grew up and several years had passed, I finally had saved up enough money to have my lower blepharoplasty surgery done. I found a great surgeon out of Virginia Beach, Virginia, who did a wonderful job reducing the appearance of the dark circles and puffiness under my eyes. But he told me that it would only last about 3 years, and that I would have to come back in that time to get a touch-up. And I said, okay, I definitely will. But 5 years had passed, and I started to notice the dark circles and puffiness under my eyes coming back. So I immediately made an appointment with my doctor to get the touch done. But because the date was so far off, I decided to go to a local doctor since the first surgery went so well. Listen, at the time, I didn't know that not just any doctor with a medical license could perform plastic surgery. And because the doctor in Virginia had done such a wonderful job, I just figured that anyone could do it just as well. And so I spoke with the local doctor, and he assured me that I was in good hands. So I scheduled the surgery with him instead. And on the day of my surgery, I was greeted and was told that the surgery would begin at 8 a.m. that morning. And so I waited. 1 hour went by, and I waited. 4 hours went by, and finally a nurse came in and told me that the doctor was running really late, and she asked me if I still wanted to have the surgery. And like a big dummy, I said yes. Why? Because all I could think of was that I didn't want to look like my dad with the dark circles and bags under my eyes. And so I waited. And I waited, and I waited, which should have been a few red flags all on its own. After 8 hours, the doctor finally came in, and he too asked me if I still wanted to go through with the surgery. And like a big dummy, again, for the second time, I said yes. But while I was lying there on the table, my spirit was telling me to get up, go home, and never come back here again. But in my mind, all I kept saying was, I didn't want to look like my dad with the dark circles and bags under my eyes, just like him. I should have known that all that time the doctor was away, he was putting out fires. But because I was conditioned to self-fulfill, I stayed. And as he began to make his incisions, I knew that something was wrong when he cut along the natural crease line of my eye. But then he extended his cut towards the outer corner of my eyes, which in African Americans would later leave a scar. He then proceeded to take too much fat and skin away, which later made under my eyes look hollower and darker, leading to something called ptosis, which is a pulling down of the eyelids. I knew I was jacked up, but I didn't know how bad it was until I drove myself home, which should have been another red flag because you're not supposed to drive afterwards. And as I barely made it home, I couldn't even look in the mirror because I was so afraid I was going to have an accident. But as I made it to my house and ran up the stairs to my bedroom, I was finally able to look in the mirror, and man, what did I see? I couldn't believe my eyes. What this doctor had done to me and how he messed me up so bad. And as I stared at myself in the mirror, I noticed that he didn't even stitch me up completely, which left these gaping holes under my eyes. And so I had to call him up and drive all the way back over to his office just so he could finish doing what he started. But as I looked in the mirror, wondering how I was going to live the rest of my life looking like this, for the first time in my life, I really considered committing suicide. I really thought about taking my own life and killing myself. Because I wondered, what woman would want me looking like this? Right. Isn't it ironic how us men, the first thing that comes to our minds is whether a woman will want us or not? But I thought about ending it. I really did. But then I thought about my 3 beautiful girls, and I wondered, what would they think of it? What would they say? My dad committed suicide because life got too hard for him to bear, and he became so weak that he couldn't handle it. He just gave up and committed suicide. And so if he could do it, then maybe it's okay for us to do it as well. And so I said no. No, I'm going to keep on fighting. But eventually I lost my job, my car, my house, and I quickly went into a state of extreme depression because I could not get myself to face the world looking the way that I looked. I had withdrawn within myself. I became even shyer, even more insecure, and even more self-conscious about how I looked. I became a social recluse because I was afraid of going outside because of what I thought people would think or say about me. I mean, I could see that I looked different, and I noticed how people were staring at me, judging me, and condemning me. Or at least, that's what I thought was happening. And so I started wearing glasses to cover up my scars, but it seemed as though people were still staring at me. I became even more self-conscious and even more insecure. I didn't want to go out to social events because I was afraid of being in large crowds, because I knew I would get some funny looks, because I looked different than how I used to. But the worst part of this whole experience was when certain friends and family members who turned their backs on me started gossiping and spreading lies and rumors about me.